This is Titan's Day. We're about to do a Tyson Thief episode. But first, I need to make a stealth check. And then I'll roll a natural 20 to crit this fool. I'll be right there. I hope you brought your headbands of +2 intelligence because we're about to get all video game RPG on your butts. I'm Titan's Day, also known as Alec. Joining me today in my party of adventurers is Bruce. Today we're going to talk about video game RPGs. So you're kind of part of my gaming group.
Yeah. There's about anywhere from almost like 10 of us that come in and out. Some of us more than others, but there's about 10 of us strong in our gaming group, at least. There's a core of us that's probably 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But there's about 10 that'll sprinkle in and out that live, adults and whatnot. You gotta do adulting. It's
Right.
never fun.
Right. In my intro video to this series, I actually brought you up in saying that you were the one that actually got me into multiplayer online gaming.
Yes. Call of Duty.
Yes. We were working
absolutely sucks now. But yes, Call of Duty was kind of our first foray into the online multiplayer gaming.
Yeah, because we worked together, and one day you were like, "Hey, you should join us."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, how do you set that up?"
Well, there's this thing called the internet. You may have heard of it.
That leads me into how did we get into video gaming in general?
Mine started really early. I started playing on a regular Nintendo, playing Excitebike, which is amazing. And I actually bought one of the Nintendo Classics just because it had Excitebike on there, and to be able to play it again and build those levels and play on this crappy little motorcycle, it's awesome.
Yeah, so what is that game? I don't think I've ever
heard of Excitebike?
No, I don't think I've ever played it.
You're so young.
I know.
It's just a motorcycle game that is a side-scrolling. Basically, you can move up and down like these 5 levels, and there may be mud pits or these obstacles that you go over, and you have to like ride wheelies and certain. It's great.
You said you could build
you could actually build a level, and this was like early Nintendo. You could actually build and save like maybe 2 or 3 levels that you could create and like play through. So you could build a level of all just the little jumpers, and it would be horrendous for you and your friend to play, but it was so much fun.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of, I guess, RPGs. What do you like in an RPG?
I like to not have to read. That's what I like in an RPG. I don't like to read.
So in Skyrim, when you had all that lore,
you didn't
read it.
No, I don't care about that Daedra, where they came from. I don't care about the lore.
Yeah,
screw that. I got stuff to kill.
Right.
So it's more about like first RPG I ever played, which is kind of what we'll get into, was Final Fantasy X. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to read. It was all voice acted. It was great. Final Fantasy VII may have been one of the best RPGs, games in general, period. Didn't play it. You had to read. I'm out.
Right.
So if you don't have to read and I can play a video game and it will go through and give me a story and get me involved in a world that is outside of the norm, fantasy RPGs like make it as close to Lord of the Rings without being a ripoff as you can, add all this adventure and stuff, is going to be great.
So for me, I think I've mentioned this before in my intro video, it was mainly the immersion aspects of video games.
Same here.
I would go over to my roommate's dorm room. Well, he was my former roommate, and I would go up to his room because he had a 360, and I would play Mass Effect. That's what got me into RPGs specifically.
Right.
I mean, I had played, I think I'd played Zelda back in the day. I had borrowed like a Nintendo 64 and played one of them. But really, before that, it really wasn't RPGs that I played. I mainly played a lot of sports games, fighting games, those kinds of things, but never never an RPG. My very first entry into video games in general was a Game Boy, like
Right.
the old school, little black and white.
Had one.
Yeah.
Don't remember playing it a whole lot, but I had one.
Yeah, and so that was my entry into video games. But my issue was that I didn't have any money because my parents wouldn't buy me things. Like they wouldn't buy me video games.
Right, yeah.
Like wouldn't buy me consoles, wouldn't buy me games. I had to pay for everything
Yeah.
that I had.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so I had a paper route, and I saved enough money and ended up getting a PlayStation, which was my first console.
Yeah.
But then my video gaming experiences was pretty limited because I couldn't afford to buy a whole lot.
Right.
And so I bought like Game Day '99 with
Right.
Terrell Davis on the cover.
Yes. Played that. Good game.
Those kinds of things.
Right.
Like that was or I played Jet Moto. I
Right.
don't know if you ever played that. It was like a racing.
I did play that.
It's
Yeah,
like
I
you're in
remember
those
that
like
one.
hover
Yes.
motorcycle like thing,
yes.
and you're flying around the map. Those are the kind of games that I played, or
Right.
like a racing game.
Right.
But I never really played RPGs until college.
Right.
And then once I started getting into RPGs, and then I was able to buy a 360 of my own, and I actually had some money to spend. Although we really didn't have a whole lot of money. I probably spent too much on video games.
Well, hasn't everyone?
Right. I bought as many as I could. I mean, I played, all the Mass Effects. I played Fallout, Dragon Age.
Right.
A ton of them.
Right, exactly.
As many as I could. Skyrim and things like that. So that was how I got into RPGs. So what do you like in an RPG? What's the thing that you like?
Kill stuff with a big sword. That's the first thing you want to do. Kill stuff with a big sword.
Right.
That's all there is to it. You can let me kill stuff with a big sword. I'm happy. It's this is what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, being able to,
So for you, it's more about it's that power fantasy
Yes.
aspect, becoming
Sure.
like the savior of the world kind of thing, or at least becoming a major person in the world that you're strong and powerful and can affect the world.
You want to matter. You're the main character, and in any movie, in any book, in anything, comic books, you want to become the main character, and the reason why the world gets changed is because you affected it. So you want to be the big, awesome superhero paladin, or you want to be I'm the anti-hero and I'm going to kill everyone because I can.
Right.
So it depends on, what mood you're in or what type of gamer you are. I am always the sort of chaotic good. Occasionally I'll just be like, yeah, I'm going to take that because I can. As far as that goes. But I always kind of, and especially with games like Skyrim, you can almost play that game. You just can play that game from a D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons mindset.
Right.
You can go in that game and say, I'm going to play a lawful good mage and do it.
Right.
You can go in and say, I'm going to play an evil paladin or an evil
Yeah.
anti-paladin and do that and just
You can be a vampire.
wreck the world and be a vampire. You can be a werewolf. You can do... That's what is so great about that game is you can say, I want to play this hero from a fantasy book I've read
Right.
and build your character to suit in almost every way possible. You can literally build a character from the very beginning and play a very specific type and just keep going.
Right.
It's great. And you can rule the world if you want to rule the world, or you can Fusro Da everyone in a village and have them try and kill you and murder them all.
Right.
It's great.
Right. It's probably the same reason that people play Grand Theft Auto, right?
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect of gaming, is just being able to go into a game and doing anything and everything you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, scratching that little itch of, everyone has whatever brand of morals they have, but being able to do something just a little outside of that is something you can do in a safe environment where you're never going to, hurt
Right.
actually anyone. You're just like, you know what? I don't like the way this guy talked to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill him. You can't do that in the real world, but in a video game, it's just like, you know
Right.
what? I'm going to do that.
Right.
And we won't even talk about the mods and things with, things that are purple and whatnot.
Right.
Beating hookers. We won't talk about that.
Right. The reason why the way I like to play is for is kind of the story elements that I like.
Definitely.
And so that's kind of what I like in an RPG, is when there's an immersive story. So if you think about the first RPG that I played, is Mass Effect.
Right.
Super cinematic.
Great story.
You make choices that influence the game world, and your choices seemingly have impact on the characters, who lives, who dies. The
Right.
ending
Exactly.
even changes based upon what you've done. Your character is good, or he's like Space Hitler, in the end. So,
Sure.
and it's that kind of thing that I think drives me in terms of what I like in an RPG.
Yeah, if you don't have a good story, you're going to lose. No matter how good your gameplay is, if there's not a story there that's going to keep you involved in why you're going into this crypt with all these
Yeah.
undead zombies, and you're trying to find this dragonborn writing on the wall thing.
Right.
None of that matters if the story as to why you're doing it isn't good, or if the quest itself doesn't have a
Right.
cool little hook to it.
So to that point, though, is like Skyrim, though, one could argue it doesn't have a great main story. Like
Disagree.
I didn't like it anyway. I didn't really necessarily think the main story. The reason
If
why
I could throw dog you right now, I would.
So the reason why I liked Skyrim is actually not the main story. It's all the side quests that are I think the heart of the game and the most enjoyable aspects.
Yeah, and they do a great job of doing that for sure. But I don't know. I feel like there's that main story of just like being the Dragonborn, having to go and get learn your abilities and that kind of. But that's also what leads you to all of the other like quests and things like that, and the abilities to do all these things. You have to have something that leads you through the game to an extent.
Right.
Because me as a gamer, if I have too many, and Skyrim is like this for me at times, and I've done this. I've spent 5 hours chasing a rabbit down a hole,
Yeah.
for no reason whatsoever,
Right.
Other than, ooh, look, a rabbit.
But so that's actually why I think that like something like New Vegas did really well, is that the main story felt more like it just felt like another one of the side quests that you eventually completed in some ways.
Right.
Where Skyrim, there's always this question about whether or not you're the Dragonborn, and then people are kind of like, well, I guess you might be.
Right.
But it was not. So for me, I often would forget about the main story in that game. Like
It's because there's so much other good
things in it. Where
So
something
to me,
like
that actually speaks more to the quality of the side quest, not necessarily the not as good quality of the main story. I feel like that quality of the main story is there, but the side quests are just so much fun, you get distracted.
Right. Well,
And
I think
it's easy to get
the difference
distracted.
between like something like Skyrim and say like Mass Effect is that in Mass Effect the side quests actually serve the main story typically.
True.
They either it's because of world building or it establishes some kind of choice aspect. The characters always end up coming back, usually the side characters, and affecting parts of the story.
Correct.
And so it's a little bit different of a model. So
Yeah.
Skyrim's kind of this open world, do whatever you want, kind of like Grand Theft Auto in some ways.
Correct.
Where Mass Effect is a much more takes you down a certain path. Like the story is the main thing. And there are
can
some
agree with that.
side quests, and there's some really cool, like, you discover this derelict ship and you go on it, and there's all these like zombie like creatures on it, and
Everybody
you find
loves
out
zombies.
what happens, right? But
Right.
that's only a very short diversion.
Correct.
Where Skyrim, it seems like the side quests aren't diversion so much, but they are the game.
I get that point.
Because imagine just playing Skyrim, just the main quest.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I usually do that. I'll do that my first playthrough.
Okay.
Because I am such a rabbit chaser that if I start doing side quests, I'll never finish the game.
Right.
And for some people, that's perfectly acceptable, and that's what they enjoy doing. I can't do that. I have to do the story in the beginning. So, like, no matter what game it is, I will try to finish the main story with as minimal side quests as possible, just so that I actually finish it. Because even the main story in Skyrim, just completing it can take you quite a while of gameplay. And so, as far as like if you're actually playing it, I've seen the like speed versions or whatever, and we're not talking about that.
Right.
But just getting through the story for me is part of the enjoyment. I want to see what they intended me to see up front and where they intended it to go.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like in some ways like I owe that to the writers of the game to like follow their story and see how it ends.
Gotcha.
And then I can go back and explore all. I have literally played an entire game of Skyrim where I did nothing but thief quests. Nothing. I played Dark Brotherhood, played the Thieves Guild, and that was it. That was like the entire experience of the game was just that. I might have done a couple of the Dragonborn things just to get Fushro Da, because you have to. You have to have Fushro Da. That's the point. But other than that, it was all thief quests. And then I went off and did like some vampire hunting and stuff like that with that particular character in that particular playthrough. But like that's also what's so awesome about Skyrim in that particular way. And in what is, so good about other games that are kind of like that as well.
Another example that I can think of a game that does something like Mass Effect in that the side quests kind of serve the main is The Witcher.
The Witcher, definitely.
So all the side quests build the character up for you because a lot of it is monster hunting, and he's a monster hunter.
Right, you're actually being a Witcher with those particular quests. That's
and
a
they
great
all
example.
they all involve some kind of monster,
Correct.
typically.
Yeah.
And so it serves the character really, really well.
Right.
And so there's
those quests gives you the best look as to who Geralt is, or Geralt,
Right.
or however it is that
So-
you pronounce that foreign name.
Geralt.
Yeah,
I guess.
Geralt. Yeah.
So the difference between something like Mass Effect and The Witcher and say like Skyrim, Fallout, and like Bethesda games is one I think is character driven. In the sense that you are playing a particular character that has a certain mission or goal.
You could throw like Red Dead Redemption in there too.
Or
That's
yeah,
very,
yeah.
very similar in that way.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of side quests to that game as well. And I know it's a shooter, but it's also kind of an RPG.
It's got RPG elements.
It's definitely got its open and like, and because I even consider games like Far Cry a little bit of an RPG element to it as well. I know they're primarily shooters, but to me,
and there's not as much building up of your stats and characters. And
there's not necessarily the
leveling
stats,
up,
but like the gear is what basically kind of gives you that ability of like learning
get better
new skills and that kind
better
of thing.
guns, and
That to me is still an RPG.
Yeah.
So like the story elements and things of those games are what make them so strong, though.
And what's
the
interesting,
side quests,
and
too.
what's interesting, I think, is almost all video games, in some aspects, are RPGs.
To an extent, yeah, you can boil them down that way. Even Madden, the new Madden game, came out with a story mode that's great. Like it's super fun, and like it involves you. Like it's legit. Like it's fun, and it's an RPG take on Madden.
Yeah.
No one would have thought about. I mean, I would have never thought about that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. Like you kind of just did it on your own when you were like building a franchise from scratch and doing fantasy drafts, which I love doing. So that was kind of your way of doing it.
Yeah.
And then they gave you a story to like play your guy.
Yeah.
Your person. That's really cool. Like and you're right. There are so many games that are not RPGs, but they still have that RPG element.
Yeah.
Because you're still playing a character or a role of some kind, and
Right.
that's what makes them fun.
How do you play RPGs? Are you
With a big sword smashing skulls in. That's what I play RPGs as.
we kind of touched on it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I play RPGs, yeah.
So you're not the stealthy guy. You
Generally
don't like to be a
no.
thief.
I have played Skyrim as the thief and the stealthy guy, and I got good at it, better at it, I suppose. But generally speaking, it takes more time. I'm not a patient person. So that is not the way I play.
Yeah.
I play a game like full force, going forward. There is nothing to the side and nothing behind me. It is just what is in front of me, and I will destroy it.
Right.
That is how I am. I'm a barbarian. That is how I work. That is what is ingrained in me.
Yeah.
Give me a
You're
sword
always
and
the
I will
fighter
smash
and
it. Yes.
yeah.
Always the fighter when I'm playing in the barbarian, when I'm playing D&D, or a ranger. But even then, I'm an aggressive ranger.
Right.
Like, I'm always going to be the aggressive, like,
Kind of
even if no matter what game it is. Generally speaking, I play aggressive. That's just how I play. I was that way with every game, even in football. Like just playing Madden, I'm like, no, throw it deep. Just forget this finesse. To just throw it deep.
Yeah.
Run the ball down their throats and then throw it deep. That's all you got to do.
Right.
Don't understand why more teams don't understand that concept. Just throw it deep.
Let's just throw it deep.
Yeah.
So you're the throw it deep of RPG.
I am the throw it deep of RPGs
Players.
for sure. Yes. Give me a big sword and I will crash. I will smash everything.
Yeah.
And then throw it deep.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
So for me, I actually embrace that RPG aspect. So what I do is I ask, what would this character do? In almost every game that I play. So if I'm
I
playing,
do the same thing.
But
It's just that my answer is smash things. It's just a difference of opinion. That's all it is.
right?
It's a difference
I guess
of
that works.
philosophy. Yes.
Right.
Your
It can
philosophy
be.
is, I shall consider this and consider the consequences. Mine is, screw that. Let's kill it.
Well, like so, for example, like when I'm playing Geralt, because I've read all the books and I kind of understand the character, I try to play as my version of Geralt would.
How you interpret.
Yeah, how I would interpret him behaving.
Right.
In Mass Effect, what I would do is it would be dependent upon what kind of character I wanted to play. Was I going to be this kind of on the edge sort of character who's morally questionable,
right?
Or was I going to be a goody two shoes, and play it that way?
Yeah, when they first started coming out with like the options for what you were doing in games like Knights of the Old Republic, one of my favorite games of all time, I generally was picking the option of, well, either you do it or I'll kill you. And I know that's not really Jedi, but it was, well, no, you're going to do this because that's the right thing to do. And if you don't do it, I'm going to make you do it.
Right.
You choose. Either you choose to do the right thing or I'll choose for you. That's kind of my philosophy on things.
Gotcha. Where I would like, the Jedi they're, mostly peaceful, and
Correct.
I'm not going to.
You're going to try to Obi-Wan everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to Obi-Wan everybody, where you're more like Anakin.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I guess I'm going to turn to the dark side eventually. I don't
Sounds
know.
like it, actually.
That's cool. I'll be Darth Vader and follow that.
Well, so in Mass Effect, the game that got me into it, I've probably played 5 or 6 different playthroughs actually of that game total, and every time I've played it completely different and made different choices depending on what kind of character I played. So the most recent one that I did, it was a long time ago, but I played a female shepherd, and I played her as a like space Hitler kind of thing, but she was a drunk.
Okay.
Every time she went, if there was a bar or if there was any kind of like alcohol anywhere, she would be drinking it. So I always was hanging out in the bar getting drunk.
Right.
And what's cool is there was one bar I was on the Citadel, and she's drinking and she passes like she gets like some bad alcohol and almost gets poisoned.
Right.
Or whatever. And it starts a side quest. And I was like, oh, I probably wouldn't have done that if I wasn't a drunk.
Right. Have you ever had the Skyrim adventure where you get someone poisons you in the bar and you get thrown out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I love that quest.
Yeah.
That's
And so
see, that's what I'm talking
yeah.
about. Like, if side quests just happen, that's when they're more fun.
Yeah.
Like, for me.
Yeah.
So, like, you show up to a bar and you're like, oh, yeah, I'll drink
And
with
then
you.
boom.
And then you pass out and you're in a field in the middle of nowhere and you got to trace your steps
Yeah,
back because you got to
yeah.
find a goat. What the crap, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, though, I see that because that's fun.
Yeah. And so Skyrim is good for that. And
Yes.
Skyrim is very good for just saying, I want to be this and
Right.
just play it.
Yes.
Where other games I like Mass Effect and The Witcher, is I like to become those characters.
Right. You
which
are
is
already
different.
given a character.
Where
in general.
Skyrim, you have to come up with something.
Correct.
You have to kind of like do some DMing a little bit. You know,
Right.
like what kind of character am I going to be?
Right.
What kind of actions I'm going to take? But where if you're already given a character like Geralt,
Right.
I'm going to play as Geralt. Is kind of
Correct.
my idea
Right.
and my mindset.
Yeah.
So
And there are plenty of games where, like Red Dead Redemption and that kind of thing, where you start out as you have a character. He has a backstory. You are someone, but they still allow you to like change that character. And like with Dragon Age, like the original Dragon Age is like that too. You kind of have there's this like assumption or kind of like thing where like you're already like this particular thing and like character, and then you're kind of molding it in what I meant was Dragon Age 2, which I know a lot of people don't like because you didn't get as much like option, but I really liked that game. I liked that you were already, what you needed to be, and you were just playing through that game.
Right.
And I like that they brought him back in Inquisition, and you played a version of who that character was
Right.
supposed to be and that
Right.
kind of thing. It was fun.
right.
And that's still, I love the Dragon Age games. All three of them are
Right.
still good to me.
So are you a main quest or a side quest kind of guy?
Well, we've talked about that. I'm definitely the main quest guy. Oh, yeah, I can't get distracted. It does not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Got to play through the story mode first.
Yeah.
And then I just, if I get distracted, I'll get off on some weird random quest and
Yeah.
will find my way back somehow.
Yeah.
I'm like a little lost puppy. If I can't, if I don't
Yeah.
follow my path, I'll go off into a million.
Yeah. So I'm definitely a side quest kind of guy. Like
Right.
for me, the first time I played Skyrim, it was almost torture because there was so much to do, and I was just constantly doing the side quests that I
Right.
completely forgot about the main quest.
Right. And so, and that's where like your whole idea of picking like a character to
Yeah.
play works so well in Skyrim, because you can be like, well, I can't do the Thieves Guild stuff because I'm super good, or I'm not going to join the Dark Brotherhood because I'm not evil and I don't want to assassinate people, or
Right.
and all these different things. So like that is also like why the side quests in Skyrim are so good, is because you can play a character and
Yeah.
make decisions on like, I'm not going to go over here and join this group because
that's
they're
not my-
evil and bad.
and that's not
My
what my-
character wouldn't
Right,
do that.
right.
And that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
she might go, and take the Thieves Guild out in Riften, because you can do that. That's a part of a set of quests that like you can just get rid of the Thieves Guild and end up like killing them all.
Right.
Yay, killing. So, and stuff like that.
Right. What was the last RPG that you played?
The last one I played actually was The Witcher.
Okay.
Because, like I said before, I have children. My PlayStation broke, and that was the only one that I had digitally downloaded on the PlayStation. So, like, I went back and was playing it again. And I love that game. It's such a good game.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. Just being able to, like, the combat system in that game is one of its, like, for people that don't necessarily want to do the action RPG, it's really fun, but it's also difficult. It gives you that, like you can change the difficulty of the combat, and that will add, like, it almost becomes an action RPG at that point, because it's so, like, you can make the combat, like, really hard and really important,
Yeah.
and, like, the strategy of it. Or you can play it like me and play it on easy just because you just want to get through the story and you don't want to have to, like, get super frustrated and
Right.
break controllers.
Right.
'Cause, that tends to happen sometimes.
Yeah. So mine, I don't know if you would consider this an RPG. It was called Hellblade. Senua's Sacrifice. And the reason why it's one of those kind of games that it's kind of in between, because it's very linear.
Right.
And you're playing through, it's almost more of a single player kind of experience where there's really not choice going on. And so I don't know if you can really call it an RPG.
Right.
But the experience was so powerful for me. It was actually one of those games that wasn't fun to play.
Huh. Okay.
It was actually kind of torturous to play, but it was one of those that was in a good way. And it's really hard to explain. And it's because the main character is suffering from mental illness.
Right.
And so it is very difficult subject matter,
Yeah.
but it's one of the coolest representations of mental illness in a video game that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And one that puts you in the character so well.
Right.
I mean, and it actually recommends like playing with a headset when you play, because as you're playing, you hear voices talking to you.
I've read reviews of the game. It sounds creepy as all get out.
It really is.
And I'm not quite sure that I can handle that. To be
Well,
honest,
honestly, I'm not typically like a horror or super suspenseful games. Like I don't typically play those.
Yeah.
But this game, the experience was so interesting.
Right.
That I wanted to get through it, and there were certain parts where I almost like just closed my eyes and just got
Hope
through
for the
it.
best.
Hope for the best. And there was all of this stuff about whether or not what she's seeing is real or and
They're
stuff
all
like
in
that.
their head. Yeah.
And so that story element was real, and like I said, what got me into gaming in the first place was immersion, and that was one of the most.
Have the story.
Yeah,
if you don't have a good RPGs can have the best combat systems and have the best skill system and the best, but if you don't have a good story to go along with it, you're not going to get the people to play your game that deserve to play your game. Like that's the thing with games that have that are really fun, but they just don't have the story to go along with it. Like that's when a game is like, oh, you had such good potential, but your story is just awful.
Yeah.
Like, please hire better writers.
Right.
You know, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
And so the other game that I played that would be more of a traditional RPG is a JRPG. It was Nier Automata, and I'll talk about that game here in a minute. But I soaked a lot of hours into that game as well.
That's a little too Japanesey for me. I don't do well with like Zelda. I can't play Zelda. I was awful at Zelda as a child.
Yeah.
I can't play Zelda. I've never liked Zelda, and I get that most people are just like, "Are you kidding me? You can't play Zelda?" No, I was not good at video games as a kid, and I tried playing Zelda because, of course, everybody had Zelda on the regular Nintendo. No, can't play it. Won't play it. Refuse because I'm awful at it.
Yeah,
I just can't. And because of that ingrained nature of me as a kid, I can't sit down and play a Zelda, no matter how good it may be. It's not going to happen.
So that actually leads me into what our next topic, which was what RPGs are your favorites, and maybe even that aren't your favorites. So you already mentioned one of them.
Yeah, I can't play Zelda at all. That one's definitely on my list of everybody else loves it. I hate it. That's just kind of how it is.
Right.
But favorite RPG, we've already talked about it a bunch.
Yeah.
Skyrim has to be. It's just the most well-balanced, good stories, good mechanics. They've updated it. Like I've bought it for 2 systems now because it's so good. If they make another version for the next console, whatever that happens to be, you know, the Xbox 3000 or whatever the crap number they're going to come up with, I'll buy one for that. You know, it's going to happen because it's such a good game and you can just immerse yourself in it, and you can always play it differently. Like we have a good friend of ours that was on your original Kingdom Death thing. He's played that game so many times through as different characters that it's crazy when he starts talking about stuff and all the mods he does on his PC version. I'm a console guy, so that's just how I am. Mods are great. I don't need them.
Yeah,
just give me the solid game. I don't. I know that the mods of PC are awesome.
Yeah,
I don't need that. That's just not me. I don't have enough time to do all the mods and things like that. And so, but it's got to be Skyrim. just because it's the first RPG that I played and really got like immersed in.
Gotcha.
Final Fantasy X is still one of my top favorites for that. Like you really liked Mass Effect. I really liked the first one.
Yeah.
I didn't so much like the next two and didn't really play them after the second one. I got the third one. I was like, I'll wait and see. And the reviews were bad, and I didn't play it.
Well, the reviews were actually pretty good for the third one, but it was the ending that people.
Well, the ending, yeah. And I was just like, well, if you can't end it well, why play it?
Right.
You know,
Right.
who wants an ending that sucks? You want a happy ending
Right.
as it goes. So if you can't get a happy ending, what's the point in trying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although now, retrospect, I can look back and see some of the trends going into the third game that ended up being some of the reasons,
negatives.
some of the negatives, but also the writing staff changed for the third one, and there was a lot of issues with the third one, especially the ending. Up until the ending, it was by far my favorite video game series ever.
Right. I get that.
I mean, it's the reason why I got into gaming.
Yeah.
I literally bought an Xbox 360 just to play Mass Effect.
Right.
If that was the only game that I owned,
Yeah.
and at the time it was an exclusive, it was Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
So if that was the only game I owned, I would have been happy.
Hey, I'm
with that.
similar in that way. I'm a PlayStation guy. I have always been a PlayStation guy.
Oh, me too, actually.
But when Knights of the Old Republic came out for Star Wars,
like, I'm
it was
gonna get-
only on the original Xbox.
Yeah.
And luckily, in college, again, I had a roommate in college that had it, so I was able to play the first one. Well, like when he moved out or whatever, a couple years later, I was like, man, I really want to play Star Wars again because it's Star Wars and it's Knights of the Old Republic and it's awesome. And then the second one had came out, so I had to go buy an Xbox, even though I didn't really want to. Like, I bought a 360.
Yeah.
And the 360 ended up being a great system, and it was probably, it was better than the PlayStation 3 at the time.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting it and playing it a lot, but I'm
Right.
still a PlayStation guy. PlayStation
Right.
4, that's what I
Right.
play. But it's Star Wars, man.
Yeah.
You can't get better than Knights of the Old Republic because you get to put lightsabers in your hand and, like, slaughter things because you're a Jedi.
And
what
we've
we
already
do.
established that anything with a sword, Bruce is gonna.
Yeah, I'm going to smash it. Yeah, I'm cutting limbs off. I don't care if it cauterizes the wound. That limb is coming off. Like, I'm pulling an Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's happening. That's how it goes.
And so another RPG that's probably my favorite is The Witcher 3.
Yeah,
Specifically.
definitely. Yeah.
I actually think that's probably my favorite RPG.
I can see why
Period.
that would be. Yeah, it's got especially with you being a fan of the books.
Oh,
and
I love the books.
I have read several of them, not all of them. But yeah, Geralt is a really cool character. The twists and the turns that they use in the game are good.
The world building.
The world building in that game. Gwent is fun. Like, that's
Yeah.
part of that game
Yeah.
that I love the most is playing that stupid card game. It's great. It's so addictive. I've sat there and played for like 4 or 5 hours at a time just playing the damn card game.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. So what benefits The Witcher is the book series.
Definitely.
So it has that kind of pedigree of really good writing behind it, and it's based on a world that's established in the books. And CD Projekt went into great lengths. They're fans of the books. 'Cause,
Yes.
I mean,
You
they're
can
from
tell.
the same
I mean,
country,
yeah.
the same from where the author came from.
Yeah.
And so they put in
They put love into that game
Yeah.
for that character
And you can
that
feel
series
it.
of books. You can feel that they've done that.
And once again, my go-to thing is immersion. And
Yeah.
so that game immersed me into the world, unlike a lot of other games that I played.
Right.
And part of it is because I read the books too. So
Right, exactly.
I have an attachment already
Yeah.
to the characters.
Yeah.
I didn't need like this backstory or I automatically was invested in the characters right from the get-go from reading the book. So that may be unique to me. Not everybody has read the books.
Right.
But it seems like a lot of people have the same kind of opinion of it.
And it won Game of the Year for several big like publications and stuff. It's a great game.
Yeah.
Like, it got the notoriety and the recognition that it deserved, especially for that year that it came out. So yeah, that and that's why, like, you're talking about the immersion in the world building. Knights of the Old Republic did that for me. And I know, like, you've got yours, I've got mine.
Well, that's-
Knights of the Old Republic, man. And It's on PC. You can get it on like tablets now. It's like a mobile game almost, and like it's so good. It is just one of the greatest RPGs. Yes, it's partially because it's Star Wars, but the story is good. The character building is good, and it's just a great game. Like I want a Star Wars RPG so badly.
Yeah.
And I know there's a whole bunch of controversy with EA right now on Battlefield.
Right.
Hopefully they'll get all that crap cleared up.
Yeah.
But I just want an RPG.
You're gonna buy the game just to play the story.
Probably.
So
And I don't want to give EA my money, and so there may be a backdoor way that I'll be able to play that game and not give them any money, which is probably what I'm going to do. But because I just want to play the story,
Right.
like that's really the only thing I care about is being able to play through the story because it's canon and that kind of thing. But I just want a Star Wars RPG. Like if you gave me a wish list, that's on the top of it for like video game wish list. That's what I want. I want another Elder Scrolls game like Skyrim. I want a new one. Give me I don't want the Elder Scrolls Online.
Right.
I don't want the online multiplayer crap. I want my single player Elder Scrolls game that I can immerse myself in. And I want a Star Wars RPG of the same similar ilk. Like, that's what I want. Those are my wishes. Give me those things, please. What do I have to do? I will consider most things. Just give me Star Wars and give me a new Elder Scrolls RPG. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Wish list right there.
There you go.
Planted. Write it down.
The last question, I guess, that I have is, what's your guilty pleasure RPG? So these are RPGs that either no one else likes, or something that is pretty obscure that most people have not played, and you want people to know about it.
Well, it's probably going to be on the one that nobody else likes, because I tend to have that problem, apparently, where I like things most people don't like the prequels of Star Wars. I like the prequels. I know that they're crappy movies at times, but they're still good. There's still good story there. That's a side note. My favorite guilty pleasure RPG is probably Dragon Age 2. I get that it sucked at times. I understand that that's most people's opinion of it. However, I disagree. I felt like the story was good. I felt like the gameplay was good. Yeah, you were limited in your movement, and I get that's why people didn't like it. I understand that. I get that they used the same basic dungeons in several of the missions.
Right.
But it was still an immersive, fun game if you just I get that some people go into things with too high of expectation.
Right.
And I understand that. Some people don't like the prequels of Star Wars. I do. I get that why people don't like them. That's fine, but it's also an opinion thing. Dragon Age 2 was not a crappy game for me. It was still okay. It was still good. I enjoyed it. I had fun. It's not my favorite by any means, but if it was a guilty pleasure, I would play it again. Like if you were just like, hey, you're going to be sick for the next 3 days and you get one game and this is it, I'd still play it. It'd be fun. I would have a good time.
So I actually played that game too. And what's interesting, that was actually my first entry into Dragon Age.
Right. Which I tried to talk you into playing the original Dragon Age, if you remember.
I remember.
But continue.
So let's just say that for the series, the bar was set really low for me.
Correct. Yeah.
So when I went and played the others, I was like, oh man.
And I get
but at the same time, it actually made me enjoy the other games even more, because I actually like playing through the Dragon Age. I actually liked it. And I think going into it not playing the first one made me enjoy it more.
Yeah, and I think that's actually what most people's experiences were. If they had not played the first one, if the first one had not existed, if that was the first Dragon Age, it would have been a good RPG. It's still a good
But the expectations.
game. Exactly. And expectations absolutely killed that game.
Yeah, it did.
It
did.
absolutely killed that game. And there's been games lately that's happened to quite often.
And I wonder if the Star Wars prequels, if it had no expectations, if it was just a movie. I do think it wouldn't have been as popular because they weren't great movies.
No, they weren't great movies. No, they weren't. And that's they made just ginormous amounts of money when they first came out, and they were actually reviewed well. Like the first one, especially, like the Phantom Menace.
Which it's
Up front?
boggles my mind.
I know.
how that
People still thought that if you go back and you like, if you could, go back and look at like what people were saying about the movie, like that first week it was out. Everybody loved it. Why? Because it was Star Wars.
Well,
Nobody was like. They
Yeah.
weren't being overly critical of it because they just wanted Star Wars.
right.
And even that to an extent, like The Force Awakens. Like I think The Force Awakens is a really good movie. But it didn't do like phenomenal things
Right.
with the story. It
Well,
gave us
and that's
great
what I was gonna
characters,
say,
and he
yeah.
did a fantastic job of setting up with like The Force Awakens. And that's what you need.
So I was
That's what
actually
you need from a good RPG too. Is you need a story to have a good setup. Your initial beginnings of the game for an RPG, you need to have a good, really snappy hook to your game.
yeah.
That's what good stories do. They get you invested early and keep you invested.
Right.
You can have a slow burn,
right.
but you got to have a hook. It's
Yeah.
got to have something that grabs your attention and wants you to make you play it.
Yeah. So I came to this realization in terms of expectations. I was talking to Missy about my wife about this, and I was saying, you know what? With Star Wars, I said I've come to the conclusion that nothing is going to beat my love of the original movies.
No, it's never going to. That's what
It's never going to do that,
Exactly.
and so I have zero hope for any other future Star Wars movie. They may be good, and they may, people may like them, but I'm never going to like them more than that nostalgic sort of feeling that I get when I watch the original movies, and
Right.
that expectation will always drag down any other movie that I watch. So even when I'm thinking about Force Awakens, I'm like, it was okay. I liked it. I really liked it when it came out. But as I continue to watch it, I'm like, this just isn't This isn't what I grew up with.
Star Wars.
It's not my
Right.
Star Wars.
And
This is, So
and that's what like any of these genres of things, games, video games, or movies, video games, even book series and stuff like that too. Like when you've got something that people have really invested their time in and really love, sometimes you're just like, to me, I don't really like the first Star Wars is amazing because it's the first one. But as far as story wise, like if you break it down, like it's great. It has everything you want. But like Return of the Jedi to me is weaker than some of the newer stuff. Like the Ewoks are awful. They basically
there are aspects that are not as strong.
Yeah, and
now there's
so-
some aspects I think that are stronger.
Oh yeah, like there's nothing better than Empire. Nothing.
Oh right, yeah.
As far as what I'm saying, but like
Well, I
you
meant with
can't.
Return, like
Yeah, and so then you
in
get,
terms
like-
of the showdown between Luke and his father,
Yeah, there are
that aspects that
he
are
does
way
really
better than
well.
yeah.
Exactly. And then you get Lucas doing what Lucas
Well,
does
those
sometimes,
Ewoks,
and
yeah.
just ruin things for no reason.
Right.
Equal.
So Ewoks basically are the
Yeah.
prequels for me, like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Returns obviously in terms of the original movies are on the bottom.
Oh, it's
of
the
my list,
third. It's definitely the third for me
one.
too. And I get like there's people out there
But
that
because
consider it the
there's-
best one.
yeah, but
and I'm like, what movie are you watching?
but because of the nostalgic factor,
Yes.
it's sometimes I like it more.
Right.
And so
See,
my
if I'm being honest, my favorite trilogy of all time is not Star Wars. It's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
my favorite
Me.
trilogy.
Oh, I would
am
say so,
more
too.
of a
and
I'm more of a
that's because
fantasy-
it's got some of those RPG aspects
yes,
to it.
Exactly.
And
And
Lord of
I
the
love
Rings,
Star
I think,
Wars.
is responsible for
Oh, it's responsible for almost every RPG ever
ever.
made.
Yeah.
Because all the tabletop RPGs
Are based off
started
of-
because they wanted to play Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, and then you got D&D, and then you've got
and all the video games are based on D&D.
D&D.
So everything is just like Lord of the Rings. That's where it starts. Print, it's done.
Yeah.
Everything is like that's
Yeah.
where that's where it all came from. Like that's where the nerds is just like, this book is great. I want to like play
Play
in
it.
that universe. How can we do
do
that?
it.
Well, let's make a game and we'll figure it out.
Right.
And thus every form of weirdness to LARPing and Dungeons and Dragons and everything in between that is all started from that. And people's like want to immerse themselves
Immersion.
in that. Immersion, exactly. And that's why they've done so. I mean, and that's why you have to have a good story, because if you can't make people want to live in your universe,
then
it doesn't matter. Because that's where like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, you want to like go there. You want to be able to
I always wanted to be a Jedi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why you want to pick up a lightsaber and mow some Sith down. You know, you want to pick up a big sword and like kill the weird zombies in Skyrim or whatever, the Dovahkiin or whatever.
Yeah,
that's the Dragonborn.
Yeah.
He's considered the Dovahkiin or whatever. But you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean.
I'm having a brain malfunction. But the zombies, they're basically just zombies. I don't care what they are, they're zombies.
Yeah.
So, you know, and just that's what it is. And that's why it's so much, that's why they're fun. That's what we do it for.
And so my guilty pleasure, and we haven't talked about it yet, is Nier Automata, actually.
Oh yeah,
because not a lot of people have played it.
No,
but it
very
is
Japanesey.
It is very Japanesey, and actually, a side note, I would have never picked up a game like that.
Yeah,
based on like the cover alone, I would not have.
No. I see Japanesey cover, and I'm like, I won't be able to play this game.
It's not a game that I would have typically picked up and played.
Yeah.
But I was convinced by the demo that they released for it.
Yeah,
and
which is always a good idea. If you've got a good game, let people play it.
Yeah, and
give them a taste.
And
like,
we got to play. We got to play the first section, and the type of it was just fun. Yeah. Period. It wasn't so much the immersion aspect that came later. Actually, the longer I played it, you actually end up playing multiple character perspectives on your multiple playthroughs. Like you get done with the story and you think, well, was that it? And it says we suggest you play this again, and the story starts again, but from another character's perspective.
Yeah, which is really cool. That's really ingenious.
Yeah, and then at the end of the second playthrough, it says we're not quite done yet. Play this again, and you press play, and it begins from the point where the story ended. So you play the sequel to what you just played.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And it's like it reminds me of an anime, like the way that it plays and the structure and stuff. Yeah. And what's really cool about it is you needed both characters' perspectives at the end
to understand the game.
To understand,
and to get the full
to get the full impact of the final chapters. Yeah. You needed both characters' perspectives because you become attached to both characters.
Right.
And when you have to make a decision at the end, you're torn.
Right.
Because you're like, wait a minute, No, I don't want to make this decision.
Right, exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
so that kind of storytelling.
The Japanese storytellers, like they're really
super
good
inventive too.
It's definitely.
And I would recommend that game to anybody who is interested in metagaming, and because even the menus and all of that stuff are within the game world.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're playing as androids, and so the menu is their internal systems, and like you can even you can actually remove an aspect, a system. Like the way it works is you add these different chips.
Yeah.
And you can remove chips to change out chips to give yourself different abilities and stuff like that. But there's one chip called an iOS chip or iOS chip, and if you remove it, you die. And it's game over. It just says game over, you're dead. Basically. And the credits roll.
That's funny. You know what? I'm over it. I don't want to play this game.
I don't want to play this game.
Taking it out.
There are 24 different endings to that game. And some of them are like gag endings like that. Like there was one point, if you just run away from the boss, all of a sudden like text will appear. It's like game over, and text will appear and says so and so character ran off into the wilderness, never to be seen again. That's game over, and credits roll. So it's like really cool things like that.
Right.
Because most games, don't let you leave the boss.
Right.
Like most games are, there's like an
They put
enclosed
you in an enclosure and you can't
area
get away.
you can't get away. Where in this game, I just decided, you know what? Screw this. I'm just going to run away.
Yeah.
And then that text pops up,
Yeah.
and I ran away, and everybody died. It said, you know, like
Yeah.
those kinds, and so those kinds of creative decision
Right,
making,
the creativity involved.
the creativity in
Yeah.
the building the world was so cool, and
Yeah.
exploring all those aspects. It's a fantastic game,
Yeah.
and I would recommend that game. It's a
Right.
guilty pleasure because one, nobody's played it.
Yeah.
Two,
It's Japanesey.
and the art cover looks like it's some kind of strange because you know they got maid outfits and schoolboy uniforms is weird, you know, because it's Japanese.
Because it's Japanese.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
They actually asked the creator, "Well, why'd you put your characters in these kinds of clothes?" And specifically the female characters, he's like, "I like women." That was the only.
That was
reason.
his answer?
Yeah. That,
I like women in maid outfits.
well,
Yeah,
okay,
then.
then.
That's Japanese.
But
yeah.
if you can get past that aspect underneath, it seems gimmicky.
Right.
At first,
But it's not.
But it's totally not. It
Yeah.
serves the purpose of the game.
Yeah.
And when they're androids, you kind of allow for some eccentric, you know, like
Right.
eccentric kind of decision making
Yeah.
and design. I mean,
Exactly.
it's really cool.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that game. So.
That's really awesome.
Well, I think we've talked your ear off so far, and it's
been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun, and this I guess we'll just go ahead and end it here.
Okay,
If you have stuck with us, please give us a like or hit the subscribe button and then hit the notification so you get more videos like this. And we're looking to do some more, so the more people that we have subscribed, the better. It actually makes us want to do this more when more people are listening. So,
Definitely.
so
And if you don't, I'll get a big sword and crush your skull. Either way, whatever.
So this has been an episode of Dyson Thief. I hope that you have enjoyed yourself. Peace.
See you guys.
Oh, great.
I don't imagine that this is going to end well. The black box. It's ready.
Right.
Requesting destruction of enemy hostiles via black box reaction.
Request accepted.
Tubi, it was an honor to fight with you. Truly.
The honor was mine.